We're going to do a little story time to begin today's Path Ahead astrology forecast. We're going to talk about the ego because this is a week where the sun has its fingers in all of the little pies, and the sun for each of us is representative of the ego, also of our clear sense of self. But that distilled version of who we truly are is always mixed up in the same batter as our ego. And the part of us that has desires, that wants to be seen, that wants to be validated, that wants to have the approval of other people, wants to look good, wants to be center stage. And that is the ego. The ego helps us to understand who we are. The ego is not all bad, but we each have many places within us that want more, that want what other people have. And then we get addicted to the attention that we do get. It starts to feel good. And this is where we start to see the built up, inflated, egoic, narcissistic stuff. And we use narcissism as a buzzword, but narcissism is a shadow side of the ego. And we each have little bits and pieces, and some of us have large chunks of ego and narcissism because, of course, we are the center of our world. Everywhere we go, we're seeing things through our lens and we're trying to meet our own needs. So we're not looking at narcissism and saying it's all bad. You're narcissistic and I'm not. No way. We all are. We all have an ego that goes into shadow that wants that hungry mouth that's like more attention, more money, more beauty, more power. And then we also have that who we truly are. Creative by nature, loving, excited, exuberant, and channel the vitality of the planet through our bodies and through our psyches. So as we're talking about the sun today, also moving into Leo season, where we'll have a whole month of talking about the sun, make sure you check out the Astrology for Awakening series that I do here on YouTube and also on the podcast Star Narratives. Make sure to like and subscribe so that you don't miss these videos as they come up, because these are really potent teachings for learning more about your own psychology, your own spiritual nature. And it's through this kind of self-knowing that we begin to have a better mastery over the shadow sides of, in this case, our ego or our narcissistic tendencies. By the way, I am Natha Perkins of Electra Astrology. Back to story time. 15 years ago, I was at a point in my life looking for something else. I had been a metalsmith and jewelry designer for many years and loved it, but I reached a point where I was tired of selling product and the whole business model just didn't feel like it was in alignment, and I knew that I needed something different. And I began to look around. I've always been the person that can help troubleshoot. That's why so many of you come to me for readings. I was blessed with a gift of being able to see many moving parts of a whole picture and articulate them in a way that people can see themselves and see their situation. One day at coffee, a friend said, "What about life coaching?" And so I looked into it. And as is typical for me, I followed the signs. The website of this coaching company had a raven on it. And I thought, well, there you go. That's my sign. This is the company. And I signed up and I loved it. I got so much out of the teachings. I had a private coach who was amazing. She was one of the first people to help me formulate how to use my gifts and skills as a seer and articulate them, work with clients so that I could help them to see it too. Loved it. Now, the person at the head of this coaching company, they were full of wisdom. They had a ton of training. They knew their stuff. They were very inspiring, very activating. It was obvious why this person was at the head of the company and why everybody was so reverent of this person's information. By the way, this was a different person than my personal coach. So this organization had a tier. There was the head honcho and then people underneath them, and then more of us underneath our coaches, and et cetera, et cetera. In hindsight, I realized that company was in many ways a multi-level marketing company. I've always been interested in cults, so-called spiritual teachers that pull students in and essentially mind control them. So over the past few years, I've done a ton of research. I've listened to a bunch of podcasts, read a bunch of books, et cetera. And as Sarah Edmondson from Nexium If you're not familiar with that situation, it's quite the train wreck of a cult story. But in the book that I just recently read that she wrote, she says nobody plans to join a cult. People join an organization that has amazing information that can help them change their lives. And that's how I felt about this coaching organization. I felt like these people are my people. I am learning a lot. It's helping me do my own personal development, and it's setting a baseline to move out into the world and help people. Now, here's where I bring in the ego. So the person that was in charge of this company had a very big ego, and it showed. And at first, it was something that we could all overlook, but it was always all about them, their attractiveness, their money. They needed more and more of us to recruit more and more people with money to come into the company. And it was disorganized, asking for more money, more people, more time. And we were giving a lot of time for free at that point. Now, what eventually happened is that this person was taking all of the money the company was making, and it was substantial, and spending it on things like private jets and expensive objects of art for their home. And very quickly it fell apart, and there were lawsuits filed, etc. And I've been thinking a lot about that situation. It's been years, it's been 15 years, but it's been back in my consciousness thinking, wow, that was very cult-like. That had the beginnings of a baby cult. Now, one of the things that we're seeing as we're working with all of this sun stuff, and it's more than just the sun. This also has to do with Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, headed back to Pisces, and also the North Node in Pisces, because Pisces is where we are altruistic. We are connected in with God, with our higher power. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to do. We want to feel that connection. And our egos, which belong really to our smaller selves, our human selves, go seeking for that connection. And we think it will be found in things like popularity or fancy vacations, beautiful homes, being propped up, being celebrated. But the truth is that we are trying to reach that higher connection, that sense of selfless service, connecting with our higher selves. When we are trying to reach that through the human means of feed my ego, I have a desire and I want it to be met. I want you to tell me I'm beautiful. I want him to fall in love with me. I want to buy that pearl necklace. I want to be famous. I want people to look at me. I want to have the most followers. Anytime that we are meeting our ego needs through those means, there's an emptiness. It always ends up hollow. As the head of this coaching company who had such a connection, they were very gifted. They clearly had a connection to potent information, but their ego got the best of them. They wanted all the money. They wanted all the fame, and they were willing to betray the trust of everybody. They were willing to betray their own source connection in favor of human accolades. So as we're going into this talk, I want you to think about the times in your own life where that egoic part of you, the one that desires, the one that wants, the one that is envious, the one that is in comparison, when that version of you comes online and is running the show, how does that feel, or where has that gotten you? And when you see other people in your life who are overtaken by their own ego, how do you feel about that? Do you trust them? Do they feel safe in your system? And I would guess that the answer is no. And I would also guess that if you're thinking about whether your own ego running the show feels good, the answer is no. And so we're going to look at the difference between giving into those base needs, trying to find connection in those empty things versus really tuning into your heart, the part of you that's real, the part of you that doesn't need any of that other stuff in order to feel light and vital and connected. So let's look at the charts. It's a major sun week. By the way, if you want to book a private reading with me, you can find me at electraastrology.com. All right, so just take a deep breath. Oh, come into your body. Talking about the ego can be confronting. It's easier to point at other people and say, you have a big ego, you're a narcissist. But when we have to look at those qualities within us, parts that yearn for attention, that feel as if money would solve all of our problems, or being honored or loved in a certain way would make everything okay. When we're honest with ourselves and we realize none of that works, it's hard. It's hard to look at because we have to say, how often am I doing this? How many hours a day do I spend being in comparison mode, looking at other people, thinking that they have more than me? So we begin this week with the South Node and Mars in a conjunction. This technically happened on Sunday, but we're still feeling it. And Mars is also about the ego. Mars is the part that wants to rush into action and is not afraid to really steamroll somebody in order to get their egoic needs met. Mars is like the man that's going to fight somebody for looking at his girlfriend, or the woman that will sabotage a good friend because they don't want them to look as beautiful or something. I had a friend in middle school who would always offer to do my hair. And I swear that she wanted me to look ugly. She would give me the worst hairdos. And I always felt on an intuitive level it was because she wanted to look better. We've all had friends like that, right? And Mars meeting the South Node is a wake up call of what isn't working. This is also dealing with the masculine energy that you have in you that might be dysfunctional. So it could be unexpressed anger. It could be an overexpression of the masculine energy. An era where feminism has been pushed so hard on the females, we end up doing a lot of the masculine stuff. And it's not always a good fit. Ladies, you can have it all. Well, having it all means a lot of extra work, let's be honest. So just take a look back over the last week at how this transit has been showing up for you. Because this is in Virgo, this is a revisitation on how important it is to not be so damn busy all the time. I was sitting with somebody the other day and observing every time they came to a place where they were settled and relaxed, I could see their mind zooming around, looking for a problem. And then out of their mouth would come, oh, shoot, let me get into my phone. I need to do this. And we all have those tendencies where our brain is searching around for something else that needs to be done. But the South Node in Virgo is the 1.5 year long reminder that there's nothing to be done. Those systems are not as supported as they have been in the past, because what is supported is moving toward the Piscean North Node, which says you have to trust that you're doing exactly what you need to do in the exact timing. And sometimes that's going to mean that you have to let go of some of the responsibilities that you have put on your plate. Maybe you have to look at how you've balanced between the masculine and feminine and ask yourself if you're out of balance. So there's a lot of internal work that's coming up just from this transit alone. That Venus is making a square, a 90-degree angle to the nodes. Venus is the values, what you are attracted to, what you are attracting, your money. Venus is the divine feminine. And we do see later in the week that Venus and Mars are making a square to each other. So the divine masculine and the divine feminine, they're both coming up. Where are they out of balance for you? If you are somebody that takes everything on your plate, you're very likely doing the work of the masculine and the feminine. If you're somebody that allows everybody else to take care of you, you are out of balance too. There's a million ways to get out of balance with the masculine, feminine. The more that we can bring that duality into balance in our own life, in our own circles, in our own system, the better. And we need both. If we have too much emotion, too much receptivity, there's no action. If we have too much action, too much pushing forward, there's no time to stop and rest and assess. So we need both. Hopefully, you're working to cultivate both within your system. And if you're not, take a deep breath and feel into the part of you that feels that you must move and act and create boundaries and decide all the time. And that's the masculine. And then tune into the part of you that would prefer to sit back and allow things to come to you, emotions to flow through, and get quiet enough to figure out what you're attracted to. What is attracting me out in the world right now? This is a potent week to get quiet. Give some focus to those two aspects of self. We also see the sun here at 29 degrees, and by Tuesday, the sun enters Leo. The sun rules the sign of Leo, making it one of the strongest energies in the sky. So we're looking at the ego once again, and the part of you that is yearning to know yourself, yearning to explore. As the veils are becoming thinner and we are becoming more aware of the truth of our reality, which is more than we have been aware of before, we have more control over what we're able to see and conceptualize than we have before. We're becoming more aware of the brainwashing, the propaganda, the things that have been deliberately put into place to keep us separate from ourselves. When we are with ourselves, when we are truly tuned in to who we are unstoppable because we are connected in with our source energy. And so, of course, there have been many different versions and attempts to keep us separate from ourselves. And when we're in our ego, when we are duped into thinking that when I'm loved enough, when I accumulate enough things, when I'm popular enough, when I'm respected enough, then I'm okay, then I'm valuable, then I'm safe. That is false because it takes us away from the truth, which is that we are one with source. I want to show you that the sun is in a sextile to Uranus. So the old ego ways of being, of seeing yourself, are blowing up. And there's going to be some breakdowns, as there usually is with Uranus, and some breakthroughs. So think about who you have taken yourself to be. What have you really valued about who you are up until this point? And I think a lot of us, if we just take our physical appearance, so many of us pride ourselves on the way we look. And we know that physical beauty diminishes as you get older, although what replaces it is so much richer, so much more valuable, which is wisdom and experience. And if we are still caught in wanting to be beautiful, and we see this all over the place, women of all ages thinking if I could lose the weight, as long as I don't put the weight on, if I could look younger, as long as I can keep up with my skin so that I don't get wrinkles. Like, it is so pervasive in our culture. So I'm using this as an example. If this is what you are obsessed with, that's your ego. Your ego says, I've got to have it. I've got to be younger. I've got to be thinner, whatever. Uranus is like, bam, let's break that down. So be looking this week for situations that come into your life where you get confronted. Beauty, as they say, is only skin deep. How many times have you remained in relationship with somebody that was drop dead gorgeous, but wasn't an absolute jerk? I don't know. I think we're more likely to develop deeper connected relationships with people, not based on how they look, but based on what's in their heart. And the same thing is true for us. It doesn't matter when we're looking at superficiality. None of that has the same weight that the heart has. So we're doing heart work this week because right after the sun makes a sextile to Uranus, the sun is going to trine Saturn. And then a few hours later, it's going to trine Neptune. And then a few hours after that, we are coming up on a Leo new moon at 2 degrees in an opposition to Pluto in Aquarius at 2 degrees. This is really intense energy because what's happening is that the sun, our ego, our sense of self, our king, the part of us that is in control of the entire kingdom, and whether you have a functional king that is heart-centered or whether you have a king that is the narcissist, full of pride and only wants to be seen for his or her beauty, money, popularity, it's going to make a huge difference on how your kingdom feels. And we have the moon, your queen, part of you that is either steady, solid, honoring of emotions, of actions, of abundance, of thoughts, or we have an out of control queen who is moody and resentful and withholding. We don't want dysfunctional kings and queens ruling our kingdom. And yet, even those of us that are the very best at having done our personal work, our spiritual work, we're doing therapy, we are conscious, we still slip into toxicity. And because both the sun and the moon are making connections with Uranus, Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto, these are all the outer planets. These are all the planets that relate to being closer to source, for one thing. They bring us information from our higher selves, from our guides, from our source connection. And they also connect us in with other people. They are transpersonal planets. So it's a lot. So this week, whip out your magnifying glass and take a look at how often you slip into the toxic sides of ego and emotional ego. And when you notice that you've gone into the toxic side, ask yourself, how long am I willing to stay here? So think about that critical part of you that comes out that says, wow, I can't believe that person is eating that much food. Or I can't believe that person is wearing dirty clothes. I can't believe he or she said that. The part of you that sits in judgment of other people, that's part of your toxic side. How willing are you to continue that? Part of you that is blaming your ex or somebody from your past, still blaming them for something they did to you or some pain and suffering they caused you. How long are you willing to hold that blame? The part of you that is always wondering, why didn't they treat me better? What did I do to them? Why didn't they love me? How long are you willing to hold that? Because we're going through the shifting and the breaking down and the breaking through, and there are new ways of being. If you missed my Uranus and Gemini talk, check that one out. It's a good one. It's about changing your mind, changing the way that you're perceiving things. We're not in a time period anymore where thinking about things the same old way, ruminating, obsessing, thinking that same old thought, not supported. It's time to shift and change. We're breaking out of chains. We're getting rid of the clothes that don't fit anymore. And the toxicity of your ego, of your emotions, of your mind, consider getting out the power washer and like washing those things away. And although we can't snap our fingers and create different neural pathways, we can become aware of how often our brains want to take us there. And then we have our ways of getting out of it. So in the case of the sun opposed Pluto, guess what? You have to be willing to see where you get messy, where you get defensive and retaliatory, where you get resentful, envious, and you have to bust yourself and say, you know what? I can see that I'm there and I'm going to work to not be there anymore. I'm going to change that channel. And essentially what you're doing is you're training your brain that it doesn't need to take you there into that room and leave you there. An example I used the other day, imagine that you walk in on somebody in a public bathroom and you open the stall and they're sitting on the pot. Are you just going to stand there looking at them? No, you're going to slam that door as fast as you can and get the heck out of there. So that's what we're doing when that resentment or that envy or that hatred or whatever it is that's toxic, even those egoic desires for approval and significance and pride, when they pop in, we're not just going to open the door and let them come in for hours and days and weeks at a time. We're going to remember and slam that door fast and connect in with our heart, because that's the exalted position of the sun. It's connecting in with what is really here and what is really true. And the heart does not lie. The brain lies. While emotions don't lie, emotions are very, very impacted by perception. So we can't fully trust emotions. What we can fully trust is our heart. And that's what we're working toward. That is the remedy for the ego. And so this is a week of practice. Practice, practice, practice. All right, so before we end, we'll just close out with a heart exercise. Tune into your heart. Take some deep breaths. You can put your hand on your heart. See whether you can feel your heart beating. And once you get a sense of that heartbeat, just tune into it. Just feel it. This is one of the main players in your kingdom. This is the king of your kingdom. This is what keeps everything functioning. And it is steadfast. And it is here to tell the truth. It is not here to get caught up in a bunch of you know what. All right. I hope you guys have a great week. I'll talk to you soon.